KRYPTON Chronicles. The Superman, Superboy, DC Universe Internet Radio Show.
Hi, I'm Rennie Cowan.
And this is Kyle Cowan.
And you're listening to the first episode of KRYPTON Chronicles, the podcast, an all-new podcast. And I never thought I'd be doing one of these, but this is great. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. My host here is Kyle. He's my brother, actually. He's a DC Universe expert. This guy is a comic book expert, a comic book movie expert. He will be brutally honest, and that's why I wanted him to be my alternate host on the show. But this is the first episode of KRYPTON Chronicles. I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. Me and Kyle both thank you. Today we're going to be talking about The Man of Steel, which is going to be the new Superman movie, due to be released June 14th, 2013. It'll be in both IMAX or in 3D if you want to see it in 3D. And also there's going to be a whole new cast, a new Superman, a new soundtrack. We're not going with John Williams, which may be pleasing to some other fans, is it will have no connection whatsoever to the Salkind universe, or at least that's what it seems like so far. So aside for that, let me introduce us first. I'll go into talking about a little bit about me, since it is the first episode of KRYPTON Chronicles, the podcast. I'm older than Kyle. I'm actually 15 years older than Kyle. So I came in as a Superman fan before he was even born. And I saw Superman the movie when I was 6 years old, and that starred Christopher Reeve, and I was just amazed by that movie. It seriously changed my outlook on life, and that's what grabbed me and enticed me to go to the cinemas, was that movie, was watching that very first Superman movie. And after that, I always loved Superman. I loved everything about Superman just from seeing that movie produced by the Salkinds, starring Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder. That's what turned me into a Superman fan. However, my first comic book that I ever read was a Spider-Man comic book. I know that's strange, but I read it when I was like 6 years old, and I remember like rereading it and carrying it with me, and that thing must have gotten so torn, it's probably disintegrated by now or something. But anyways, that kind of caught my interest into the comic book world, and I just continued watching the movies. Superman 3 came out when I was like 10 years old. Of course, I saw Superman 2 in the theaters, and so I was hooked. That's it. I was a Superman fan. And then when I was about 14 years old, I started reading the comic book, and from there, I couldn't stop reading it. I was so amazed. I'm like, these comic books are actually really good. So I started reading Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane. I mean, every title I could think of, not just Action Comics or Superman or Man of Steel or whatever. Every single title I could get my hands on. Then, of course, then I started reading Superboy, and that was it. After reading that, that's it. I became, a Superboy fan for life. And that's a different story, because I'm also the webmaster of superboytheater.net, so I have to throw that in. But we're not talking about Superboy today. We're talking about Man of Steel. So let me introduce my brother Kyle, because he has a story to tell too. Kyle, how did you get into Superman?
I got into it because of you.
That's awesome. Oh, makes my heart right there just kind of pitter patter there. Yeah, I did kind of brainwash him, and I know I've joked on, like on Facebook, and I can't remember who I joked with, saying, oh, we're starting them when they're young, and I think it's just that I had so many comic books, Superman comic books, and I was so much into the movies. you walk into my room, right, Kyle, and you see Superman posters everywhere of Christopher Reeve and comic books, and of course, you pick it up and start reading it. So when did you start reading comic books?
Say when I was about 8.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And another good thing, too, that Kyle had for him, an advantage that he had for him, was that I worked at a comic book store. I managed a comic book store for like 10 years. It was called Comic Castle. So Kyle would go in there and he'd get, his discounted comics, and sometimes he'd even get stuff for free, because I worked there. So, Kyle was a pretty lucky kid. So what titles did you start reading?
I started reading Man of Steel, the ongoing series when it came out, and Avengers of Superman, and of course the main Superman title. It's just I did get into Marvel a little bit as well. So
you started out with Marvel.
Kind of both at the same time. I think I just took turns.
Did you get into the movies first, you think, before you got into the comic books?
Yeah. I think that's the approach I did.
You started watching the movies first. And of course you had complete access to the movies.
Oh, yeah, and there wasn't any Marvel movies, really.
Yeah, there were no Marvel movies when you were really little. And most of them were really bad. It was just the DC movies that were good. Superman and Batman. Did you like the Batman movies too? The one with Michael Keaton?
Yes. Those were the better ones.
Those were the better ones. And that's for another podcast to talk about, Kyle's thoughts on Batman. But tell us a little bit about what you think about the old Christopher Reeve movies in general. Did you like the Christopher Reeve movies? Did you think those were, kind of like the staple of what everything should try to, that every other Superman movie should try to be like?
Yes, I think that's the best approach. Superman's supposed to be friendly and caring, and it might be cheesy these days, but I think we need that, because if not, then Superman would just be a cold-hearted person with no aspect on life.
That's a good point. And of course, you watched the Superboy TV series when you were young, because I had all the episodes on tape. And I remember when I was in college, I'd come home on the weekends and you'd be watching Superboy. So.
On VHS.
Yeah, you had access to all of them. So that was a good thing. So since you had access to everything that I had, that kind of just inbred that into you. So that's fantastic. So what titles do you read now?
I still read maybe the same titles like they had back then when I was younger. I read Superman titles, Supergirl, and then the new Superboy, the clone. And I'm looking forward to the re-release of the new Avengers of Superman, which is coming back, and it's old school Superman with new stories.
All right, yeah. And you read other DC titles?
Oh, yes.
You read Animal Man?
Man and Swamp Thing. So those are probably one of my favorites.
You're big on those.
Yeah, because of the Rot World storyline. Ooh.
That's funny. And do you like Aquaman?
Yes, I like Aquaman. That's probably one of my my favorites.
Geoff Johns.
Yeah, it's where I like to enjoy. It's something I can sit and enjoy.
That's awesome, Kyle. That's awesome. Now we're going to get into Man of Steel. As I mentioned earlier, Man of Steel is going to be released June 14th, 2013 of this year. So we don't have long to wait. We only got a few months until the summer, and then it's going to be out. The biggest gripes right now that people have with the movie are the costume. It's different than anything we've seen before, even a huge divergence from what we saw in Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. So what do you think of the new costume, Kyle? What are your thoughts?
Well, what can I say? It's nothing what I expected. It's just too organic. It's not really much of a costume, really. It's just, I don't know, it just looks kind of fake.
It looks fake to you?
Yeah.
Do you think it's too dark?
It's dark, and there's too many designs on it. I think there's more designs than the Superman Returns costume. They still have the same aspect when it comes to the dark colors, of course, just like Superman Returns.
A lot of people think that Superman shouldn't wear something that dark.
I believe most people are right. I think just like with the last costume from Superman Returns, it was dark, but it was okay. They couldn't have done a better job, but for this movie, I think they need to redo it.
You don't think the costume was right at all for Superman?
No, I just think they just wanted to use someone else's idea and make it look kind of too sci-fi. Like, it just doesn't suit him. It's not appropriate either. It just takes your attention off the whole movie.
So the costume kind of takes your attention out of the story.
Yeah. I can't ever really focus. All I see is this little designs when it goes further down the lower torso. Yeah.
And I think that's a big complaint with a lot of people.
It looks threatening. It doesn't look peaceful at all.
So it doesn't look like something that a superhero that fights for truth, justice, for the American
Kind of
race would wear.
frightens me, actually. I don't.
That's an interesting thought.
I don't really look at him. I just want to tell him to stay away from him.
It's just so dark is too scary. Then you think
it's too scary.
And what about his physique? Do you think it shows his muscles at all or anything like that? Or
I think it's covering everything. You can't really see much in that. It's because of the costume. It's just that the coloring, you can't see much.
So it kind of hides, Superman's build-up, how he's supposed to look, you think.
And it looks like a rubber suit. Looks to me like...
It does.
Yeah, it's not normal. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a rubber suit that Aquaman would wear or something. I mean, I think I'm willing to give it a try. I don't know about the cape, the Roman cape. It looks pretty long. What do you think about the cape? Think it's too long?
I don't like it. It just looks pretty bad. The only thing I like about the costume, I think it's just the insignia of the S shield. I think the design's really nice for
on
that.
The front, yeah, the S.
But other than that, though, the rest of the other designs that were just added were so didn't have anything else to place with the costume. They just kind of threw it in there.
Yeah. Earlier today, I was showing you that the Empire magazine, the front cover that had Henry Cavill on it, and immediately you just kind of like had a heart attack when I showed it to you. You were really offended by the costume. It said, "Amazing 2013 superhero preview, Man of Steel. Superman gets the Dark Knight treatment."
And then when I heard that just had my hopes all the way down. I mean, if they're gonna make a costume, make it similar to the comic book, because in the comic book, but instead of making it look like armor, like it's in the comic book, just make it into a costume for the movie, like what they did with Superman in the movie. They just used the same costume in the comic books. They went by the recent comic books, what he looked like, and yeah, I think too many people have too many ideas. I mean, you got Smallville has their own idea, of course, the Superman, the New 52. Earth 1, and it just goes on. There's just too many different versions, and people don't say the same idea, and then it gets all kind of goofy. This one's really goofy. This is like the worst one of everything, I think. So they should have just made it similar to the New 52 a little bit, but instead of armor, just keep it as a costume.
Right.
It's not hard.
So you think it's getting too funky, that DC is just getting too funky? It's like change is
with
good,
the movies,
but...
with the movies, when it comes to their movies. Because I know Batman always has a different look. I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That's not Superman, though. So
it seems like people are more forgiving of Batman, though, than the costume for Superman. It seems like everybody wants everything to be so perfect in the right way with Superman.
Yeah, with Batman, it's okay. He's a gadget guy, so he can have all these different types of looks.
Right.
Now with Superman, they're just getting out of control. The New 52 just kind of
it lost you.
It just made things probably worse, I would say.
What do you think of the little collar Superman
That's
has?
the only thing I don't like about the New 52, the collar and the way it looks like armor, because it does look like an armor costume. And it's organic as well. It's like little nanobites that he kind of thinks of and it just adapts into his body, which I don't think it's necessary. But that's the New 52, so... other than that, Supergirl doesn't have that. Doesn't have that kind of costume. I'm trying to figure out why does he have that and she doesn't have it. It doesn't make any sense.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, and I've noticed. Well, I mean,
Superman has it, but not Supergirl.
But she kind of takes each. The funny part about it, when I saw her take off her costume, she kind of takes each piece off. What I thought was kind of interesting. I guess she has to put it like back into like it's a puzzle with her. Right. But with Superman, he just kind of thinks about it and just kind of. Takes over his body, and
so it's kind of like that one Terminator. Was it the T-1000? He just kind of thinks about it and puts on any kind of
look,
disguise, or he has to touch something,
and Superman doesn't have time to do that. Someone's going to die by the time he's ready to be Superman and fly off.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think they might be going with the idea of where he just drops his clothes. Clark Kent drops his clothes just anywhere, like they did in Superman Returns. He didn't, super compress it like Christopher Reeve, and then it's like magic. You don't see it.
It's very sloppy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the costume. It's okay. They could have done a better job, but at least they were doing their best to keep it original, I guess. So,
right.
You can say you're your what's and buts. I'm not gonna say anything bad because I'm kind of focused on this movie right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But in general, you just feel the costume is too dark.
It's unnecessary. It's just got too many designs on it. It's
got that little thing. It's got those little things where you can kind of get a microscope.
Little zigzags I've never seen before on a costume between his.
Yeah, let's not mention that.
Yeah. But anyway, there's too many zigzags and, I don't know, a little polka dot, I guess, little bouncy polka dot. I guess
so
that's
just
supposed
too funky.
Yeah, I guess that's supposed to be like the belt. That makes up for the belt, little crumb donut. They put it right.
It doesn't have any shorts this time around.
They put a little crumb donut.
No
right.
underwear, what they usually call it.
Underpants or whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about the writer, actually the producer. Chris Nolan is on it, and Goyer is on it, who's the writer. And we all know that David S. Goyer, did the Batman movies. Well, the most recent films of Batman, and Chris Nolan produced the Batman film. So what do you think about the Batman team doing Superman?
I think I think they need to just stay with what they're good with. Nothing. I think they need to stay away from the stuff that brings light to people's hearts. So I think
that's a good way of
Superman is not their thing.
That's a good way of looking at it. So you feel that Batman is a dark film with dark ideas, but Superman brings the light. So that should have a different set of writers. It should be bright and not dark like Batman.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be cheesy as long as it's a good story,
Right.
So just because has humor or doesn't consider to be cheesy. Most people think that way, and I don't think that's the case. They can make a good movie with this humor in it. I mean, they do that
without being dark. Yeah. And I would have to agree, because Superman is not Batman. Superman doesn't have to be dark, and we don't have to go dark, We don't have to use that formula just because it worked for Batman. That doesn't mean it's going to work for Superman. That doesn't mean it's going to work for him.
I mean, if they were going to do that, might as well make a sequel to Superman Returns. I mean, maybe that might have been better than the first one, because I remember they were going to make all action in that one, lots of action.
Yeah.
Because the first one was pretty slow. I mean, I agree, it was pretty slow.
Right.
But that's over with, so and then they went from that to dark. I don't know.
They just started all over again, and I think the problem was with the budget. They felt that that the movie just went way too over budget. And of course, there's some people that say, well, no, that was from everything that was in development with McG, and it was all thrown in there too. But unfortunately, that is a part of the budget as well. But even without that, the budget was just exorbitant. It just went,
maybe it was maybe David S. Goyer was maybe the price was right with him. I think he had a better deal than most of the other writers. I mean, not to put anybody's fantasies down, but I think he had a better deal than the other writers who are writing the Superman titles right now. So they want to save money. You're going to pay for what you get.
That's a good point. And also we got other comic book writers who pitched ideas to DC for Man of Steel before Goyer and Chris Nolan went on to the team. Geoff Johns, he pitched an idea for a reboot, and so did Grant Morrison. And these are seasoned comic book writers, people that know Superman and know DC. They could have written the new movie. And we know it's the same thing with Superboy, the TV series. Ilya Salkind had, the Star Trek writer who was a good writer, but he just wasn't a superhero writer. And so Ilya finally found out that, in order for the show, the Superboy TV show, to be seriously successful, he had to have DC writers, people that knew the material. So unfortunately, we haven't seen the movie yet, but Goyer's done a lot of stuff. He's written a lot of superhero movies. He did some Justice Society book for DC. He might know his stuff too, but he's not really a seasoned comic book writer. He's not a DC comic book writer like Geoff Johns. These are people that are making the DC comic books what it is today. They're the ones who are moving the new generation of DC, and they could have had this guy on the new movie, but he's not. So do you think that was a mistake, Kyle?
Yeah, I think that was because Geoff Johns, he wrote some couple episodes for Smallville were really
That's
good,
right.
and he did produce Green Lantern, and even for that movie, he's kind of like did okay. He said they probably could have done a little bit better with it. Even he agrees. So I mean, I think Jeff Johns would have been a better choice.
Right. Another thing that may have pushed Man of Steel into being made is that in court, of course, we know that Schuster and Siegel, the Siegel family, they got rights from Warner Brothers and for Superman, not all the rights, but Warner Brothers, in order for them to continue profiting off of Superman, they have to basically keep shoveling out a movie. They have to be constantly making profit off of Superman for the Siegel and Schuster family, or they lose Superman. It's kind of like you snooze, you lose kind of a thing. So also, they're kind of backed up in a corner, Warner Brothers, where they have to make this movie. But as you were saying, that still doesn't mean that you have to make a bad movie. That's what you're saying. Is that your opinion? That
it's just going to be a popcorn movie. That's what I see it.
Just a popcorn movie.
I don't have expectations. I'll watch it, but I don't see it going any further.
So you think Man of Steel is a risky movie?
It's very risky. I haven't really seen too much of his performance flying and the other superpowers, so all I saw was a glimpse and it looks like a cartoon.
Right.
So, doesn't take much.
With the flying, it kind of reminds me of the old Max
doesn't
Fleischer cartoons.
take much brains to know about that, so.
That's funny. Okay, so let's talk about the cast members now. Lawrence Fishburne, Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, Kevin Costner, Russell Crowe, Diane Lane, and Lana Lang is in it. She's played by an unknown. I don't know who she is. Jaden Gould. She was in Battle for Los Angeles, a totally forgettable movie. So what do you think about the cast, Kyle? What are your thoughts on the cast?
Well, I think the only best cast I've seen so far is probably Kevin Costner. I think they need to recast the whole cast, tell you the truth. Lawrence Fishburne, don't get me wrong, he's a great actor, but he's not meant for Perry White. I think for him, they probably should have put him in a different part. That's definitely he's not a Perry White guy.
Right.
But other than that, I know Kevin Costner, but even I'm kind of displeased because he's been placed in a lot of great movies, and I think he's just doing this for money.
Think he's just doing it for money?
And I'm very unhappy because, I watched the trailer and he just, made it look like it's okay to let people die and not. And
yeah, I remember that.
So
that one line
so
from
they
the
know,
trailer.
So they won't know your secret, and I don't think. That's something Jonathan Kent would never really say. He's pretty close to Clark Kent, even if they're not his real parents. But they give him advice. They're not supposed to give him bad advice because they do that. Then he's going to be a little confused. And I think the second trailer just made him. I think it was more confusing. It was better than the teaser trailer, but he looked a little lost and confused and hopeless. And all these powers, what was he plan on to do?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, you got all these powers, what are you supposed to do, with them?
At least in Superman the movie, he had an idea and what he was going to do with them,
That's right, his dad had an idea. He's like, you're here for a reason. It was kind of like, you have a purpose and I don't know what it is.
The crystal pretty much opened his mind when he found the crystal calling to him in the barn.
Yeah.
But, that was different. I don't know how they're doing in this one, but he has no Clark Kent disguise for what I know of so far. I guess they just took that idea out.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen him wear the glasses once in any trailer or anything.
I don't know if that's a joke or something, or maybe they're building up to that, like maybe they did in Smallville, but I really haven't seen anything like it before. He's not really human. I guess I'm getting opinions that he's acting more human, but where's the humanness in him? I don't get it.
He is kind of cold.
Most people said he
looks kind of confused a little bit.
Most
Superman,
people I talked to, they said
Cavill.
they're trying to make him look human. They're trying to make him act human. And I'm trying to think, well, I think you guys got your story kind of mixed up. He doesn't look human. He looks kind of alien. I don't understand what they're getting. I think a lot of fans are getting kind of mixed up here.
Yeah.
They just go by the Christopher Reeve movies, and they're like, yeah, that's old school.
Like Christopher Reeve is old or something. It's an old school.
Yeah, they're just saying, like, he had his time, and it's just like they make it look like it's forgettable or something, but you can't forget those movies. I mean, that's what made Superman Superman. I mean, he wasn't the first Superman, but he made Superman what he is. I mean, first time, I think that's when Superman was born for the first time in 1978. I really think that's the first time they really had it right with the look, and I mean, I think that's when the real Superman really.
That's a very good idea.
On Earth for the first time.
Those are very good thoughts. So you think that Superman really came into his own in the 1978 release of Superman the movie? That's when they finally got it right, even from the comic books and everything.
Yeah, the right look and everything.
That's fantastic. And of course, we know that Reeve had the curl and Henry Cavill doesn't. And I know a lot of fans are like, well, you don't really have to have a curl, or it's just a curl, but to me that was a part of the disguise.
Yes. I think Superman, the Christopher Reeve costume, and the one from Superboy, I think that costume, I think they're both, I mean, they're a little bit different, but you can tell they're both the same aspect, and they kept it true to the comics.
Right, and he had a curl.
And they both had a curl.
And I've heard some complaints, and some fans are kind of keeping it on the low down. Oh, he doesn't really need a curl. But then again, you got the other ones saying, well, he should have a curl. And to me, I think, that's just the staple of Superman. It's just like the S. The curl's like having the S on the chest. I mean, maybe I'm old school too, but I like the curl. I think Superman should have it.
In the New 52,
I guess it's not a big deal, but
in the New 52, they still kind of use it now and then. I think it's just like, if they feel like they want to put it in there, because sometimes it's placed in a different position, or maybe his hair the wind blows his hair, and kind of like, I don't understand what they're trying to do with the New 52 with his curl, but all I know is that his hair should be moving around a lot in the comic books. Yeah. I noticed when he was in the water, in the ocean, when he went to rescue some submarine passengers, after he rescued them and took them out of the submarine, that his hair was all messed up. It's kind of spiky when he got out of the water. I'm trying to figure out how that happened. In the New 52, I'm trying to figure out what he's a Man of Steel. He's supposed to be perfect, and it dries up and it still looks kind of messy. I don't know why they don't understand the concept of it, so I don't really get that part.
I got the feeling too that in the New 52 that they really haven't narrowed down his character exactly who he is. Even he seems a little lost, Superman. And I think it's funny, you said to me, you said something like, Supergirl knows who she is more than Superman does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she even speaks the language, which I think they're doing a good job with Supergirl so far. I think it's probably one of the best comic books I've read so far. I mean, I know she's always listening to the wrong people, but she seemed... I mean, we all make mistakes, and we're supposed to learn from it and move on, and Superman's supposed to be inspiration to her, and she probably just looks up to him like he's some kind of idiot now, so...
And she does, too. I know that Lex Luthor is, he's fantastic in the comic books. I can't get enough of him. I mean, he's who he should be. He's evil. And even Superman is like, okay, you know what? He's smarter than me. He has to build his own fortress, his own prison. So come on, Superboy, let's go ask him for advice, for help. It's kind of wacky. It's like Lex is the superpower. He's so smart that even Superman is like a bonehead next to him, He's like a dummy next to Lex Luthor. And that to me is kind of, I don't know. I think that Superman should be just as smart as Lex, but in his own way, in a way that he doesn't use it to promote himself or to do evil. And I think they should be on the same level. And that's kind of the irony of Superman, is that, yes, he's all these things. Guess what? He's actually really intelligent. So I don't know. I guess it kind of lost me on that one. He seems more about brawn than anything. But it was good comparing the two, with the new movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, they're going to cross a little bit. The music. What do you think about Hans Zimmer being on the music? He did the Dark Knight soundtrack.
He's done other good soundtracks other than that. I didn't like the Dark Knight soundtrack. I thought it was kind of weak, to tell you the truth. I mean, I know Batman fans have their way of whatever they want to say. Well, whatever works for them. I know I'm a little off topic, but I know The Lion King, if he actually orchestrated the music, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, he did
I like Lion King, sure
which was good. I mean, he's got some good,
Yeah.
a good list of stuff. You know, I mean, he's done a lot of cool movies.
I think maybe I'll give him a chance for this. Maybe he might do okay. I mean, just because I'm just kind of judging him because of the Batman movies, but maybe he might do a better job in Superman than he did with the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, because they're dumping the whole John Williams theme.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that's always going to be my Superman theme. To me, that's Superman. That's what made Superman. That's the only music to me that defines Superman. I mean,
yeah, same here.
John Williams is the best when it comes to making movies for music.
He makes these iconic
music that lasts forever.
Yeah,
it just lasts in Superman. Even
Star Wars, Indiana Jones. I mean,
the theme's been around for a long time, so it's not going to ever go away.
Yeah. So you think it was a good idea to do something different and not go with John Williams?
I guess so. I guess you got to make it different. You know, I mean, I guess Superman Returns was just trying to recapture John Williams' theme a lot with John Oatman, I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is really. I just know he just orchestrated Superman Returns. But
right.
I mean, yeah, I guess you got to try something different, but just don't take away that heroic music. You know, you gotta keep it real to Superman. Batman has his own kind of music, but Superman's gotta have his own kind of music. It's still gotta be inspirational.
Right. Because you can't make it dark. I mean, if you just use the formula for Batman, are you going to get his Batman in a Superman costume?
It's gotta be uplifting. I mean, it's gotta maybe be. I mean, they don't have to copy the John Williams theme, but they gotta make it a little. They gotta have some kind of different comparison to it, at least.
Right. So what do you think of this rumor, the Jenny Olsen rumor?
I hope it's not for real. I don't like the idea of it.
It's a little strange. It's a little hard for people to take.
Well, whatever it is, I just hope she's really not an Olsen.
And I know they did it in the comic books, like in some Mxyzptlk alternate universe
so
or
if
something.
anybody asks me about that question, I didn't read that comic book, so I can't answer that comic book. So please don't ask me about that.
It's, I guess as long as it's a good script and a good story and she actually fits into the story. But if they're just doing it, to be politically correct or to have some more heroes for women or something. I mean, I guess it worked on Smallville. There were a lot of female characters that really rocked. I mean, but, I mean, I don't really know what they're going for, and it's just a rumor. But, I mean, you're going to miss Jenny or Jimmy Olsen. You're going to miss him. And now we got Jenny Olsen. So, I mean, she's supposed to be Superman's pal. So that to me is just kind of weird. Hey, it's Superman's pal, Jenny Olsen. Really? Well, isn't Lois Lane supposed to be his pal? His female pal? So
yeah, well, Jimmy Olsen, that's Superman's pal, his friend.
Yeah.
I mean, when he gets, I guess his first pal was Pete Ross, I guess, when he was younger. But
right.
I mean, Jimmy Olsen is a photographer, and he takes pictures of Superman, and that's his thing. He kind of makes Superman noticeable, the pictures, and that's supposed to be inspirational again.
He makes Superman known to the public, or helps, by taking photos and stuff. That's a good point, Kyle. That's a good point. So, is she?
I just hope she's no love affair for him, and she's gonna, forget about taking pictures and just, I don't know what they're doing with
I hope they don't get too weird with that, and there was always supposed to be this love romance thing with Supergirl and Jimmy, but of course we don't even know if Supergirl's going to be in this.
Well, if they do add Supergirl to the Superman movies later on, that's probably the right direction they should do. I mean, never had Superman and Supergirl in the same movie before.
That's right. It worked on Smallville, too.
It worked on Smallville. So that's probably something I wouldn't consider a risk. That's something they need to go for. If they're not going to make a Supergirl movie, you might as well go for that.
That's a really good point, Kyle. I think that's an excellent point. So let's look at the competition that Superman is up against on June 14th, or the month of June, or even summer movies. We got Iron Man 3, we got Lone Ranger, The Wolverine, and Kick-Ass 2, which isn't really a superhero, but
I don't think it's really much competition, really. I mean, I've seen Iron Man movies; they're just popcorn movies, as usual. Wolverine Part 1 was really stupid. It was just the worst. I mean, they could have made a good script out of Wolverine. I mean, he's a cool character. You just don't make it into a popcorn movie. I mean, the X-Men movies did really well. There has been really one.
Yeah.
I'm not a really big Marvel fan, but I think the X-Men movies are great. I haven't seen one bad X-Men movie. I thought they were really rich and really well. And of course, they had Wolverine in it, but that's for another story, I guess. Right. And The Lone Ranger, I guess that's based on an old TV show. I don't know much about it, so maybe it might be okay.
Yeah, it's got what's his name in it?
Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
I haven't been really too impressed with his acting abilities lately, so I don't know.
He's gone really in a strange direction in his acting career, where he's dressing up.
I know him and Tim Burton are best friends, so maybe he's always been into that kind of stuff. He just didn't let himself become himself until later on, so people could be.
He probably should play Joker or something like that. If he likes to wear white paint
and makeup, yeah. I mean, that's just his saying. Maybe that's just what he likes to do. That's all. But other than that, I don't see much competition, really. And maybe Man of Steel looks like it would beat all those movies, but I don't know. It doesn't look too... I don't know. Man of Steel might do okay. I think it might do okay. I don't think it's going to do any better.
Do you think having a British guy play Superman was a good idea?
You never do that.
You think because you should always have an American? Because
Lois and Clark, they had like a multicultural guy. I mean, I'm not gonna say what his race was, but you don't do that either. It just doesn't fit. And this is the first time they ever did it to a big picture movie. And if he's English, he's not my Superman.
Wow.
They need to recast, but it's done already. He's no super. He's a good actor. I saw him in one movie, I can't remember.
Immortals or something.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he might have got rid of his accent, but I don't think he understands the moral of American character.
And he can. I mean, he can change his accent to match anything. But when the Salkinds were doing the Christopher Reeve movies, one thing that Ilya Salkind always said was that you have to hire an American to play Superman. He must be an American because I want Superman to think like an American, to have it in his blood, because I want him to be an American, to act like an American. So, I mean, that's the way Ilya was. He wanted everything to be authentic to the T, So, and you feel that's kind of the same thing with you then?
Same thing, yeah. Yes, I think with the Superman, Christopher Reeve movies and Superboy TV show and Smallville are like one of my favorites so far. Right, Smallville was the last version of Superman, but they really focus on his early years. I mean, I know he didn't wear the costume, but I really think they focus on him and the family, his adopted parents a lot. They really focus on their life and how tough it was to raise him, and I thought maybe they did a really good job on that. I mean, it was like the first 5 seasons they really focused on him and his parents a lot, because he was living with his parents and he was trying to figure himself out, and they were with him all the time through. And I mean, when I look at this new movie, I mean,
Tom Welling was Canadian. Some of the cast was Canadian, but that's pretty close to. I mean, Canada's really like America anyway.
That's true.
I mean, it feels like, I don't know.
I mean,
it does.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Kevin Costner's performance yet. I know he's a good actor. He might do pretty good Jonathan Kent, but I think we all know who the best Jonathan Kent is, and it's But I like him from Smallville. He was my favorite.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite too. Totally. I mean, you can't do any better than.
I really thought. I mean, I like the other Jonathan Kents, but they really focus on his character really a lot in Smallville, and the closeness he had with his son. Because no matter what, he would always sacrifice himself for his son. That was anything. If any problems his son had, he always would sacrifice himself before his son.
And I think Paul Kent in general was just done so well in Smallville. It just. Him calling him son, it was just always like, you're my son and I'm your dad. And it just, I mean, you really, really felt the farm Kansas, mentality, in Smallville. So they really did get that right in Smallville. And so we'll see if they get it right here. And we know Russell Crowe is Jor-El. What do you think of Zod being in this one? A lot of people were like, I do not want General Zod in another movie. What do you think of that?
I think there's so many characters they can put in the movie. I love General Zod, don't get me wrong. I really like what they did for him in the Reeve series, and of course, I guess some people didn't like him in Smallville, or however they did. Well, he was a clone. He wasn't really the real Zod. I mean, there was a Phantom Zod and there was a clone Zod, but that was interesting how they did that. I mean, I know there was some inspiration from the Reeve films as well, because he did act like that Zod. But I think, they could do something different. I mean, you can add Bizarro in it, or some other characters. I mean, I know Superboy had Bizarro, but I mean, they could have just done something different. Maybe a Metallo.
And those were some of the best episodes.
Metallo,
Superboy, Bizarro.
What else could they have? Well, I don't think they've really done a really. They added Brainiac in Smallville, but they really didn't do the original Brainiac. So I think in the Superman movies, I'd like to see Brainiac as his true form. I think that's what they need. Here. They need to put, because I think Brainiac is more. I know Zod has a lot about his past. He knows more about Superman probably, but I mean, I just think they need to move on from Zod. I think Zod is done. I mean, leave him for the comic books. I think we all know who General Zod is, so we don't know it. And watch the movies, watch the re-films.
So they've run Zod into the ground. And
I think, or put the Parasite. I mean, that's a cool character right there. Cool Why not? No one's ever used that character before. Why not just put the Parasite?
Yeah, in? And that's what people were complaining about. They're saying, there's so many villains you can draw from the comic books. Why do they keep using the same guys? I mean, Lex Luthor I can understand because he's always right there. But even that, you don't need Lex Luthor. You can have, there's like a whole list of villains that Superman has in DC Comics.
I guess they feel like he's he is an important character in his past. I mean, he's the past.
Yeah.
He comes later, but I just think, I don't know. I just think they just running out of ideas. I guess they're just trying to bring moments from Superman 2 or something into this picture, and I don't think
the initial complaints.
I don't think they can top off. That's like one of the best action films of them all. I mean, any superhero movie you watch, the action scenes, it doesn't compare to Superman 2. I mean, that's the best fighting scenes I've ever seen, special effects, compared to any action film they did with any superheroes. So I don't.
Right, it was a really good battle.
That's the best battles of any superheroes.
Yeah,
I mean, the three. That's better than I say X-Men or the X-Men battle scenes or Spider-Man.
I agree.
I mean, they're all good battle scenes. I'm not putting any films down, but I just think Superman. This was really. I like the story. I mean, it was really. I think it was necessary for that to happen that way.
And I totally agree too. I mean, it's just. I mean, Superman against 3 other, people from Krypton with the same powers, and then you got Lex Luthor, kind of on the side.
Playing 2 ends against the middle.
Yeah, kind
playing
of.
them both, actually.
Yeah,
he thinks he can outsmart Superman. That's the funny part about it. But he's really outsmarting the dumb, he thinks they're dumb. The 3 villains, which, they are a little kind of out of place, I guess. But that's what's really cool about the movie. They think they're smart, but they don't know about Earth that well.
So we got some really good moments from Superman 2, and from Smallville too, because I liked, season 9, that's one of my favorite seasons. Where they're all wearing the trench coats and stuff, and they actually got the little trench coat thing going on in this one, or Zod does, and
it looks like it. I haven't really seen his costume too well. I know it looks really dark. It's black. I guess he has a symbol from what I know of, and it's strange because I saw the toy line. You could look at on a toy. There's a toy, and he has a weird symbol on his chest, and I don't think that's really necessary. I mean, if Zod's gonna have a symbol, it has to be a Z or something. I don't know what kind of design it is, but he has some kind of symbol.
I'm trying to figure out in Smallville.
Well, that was a Z, but I'm trying to figure out, why does he even need a symbol? I'm trying to figure out what is it? If it is a symbol, what is it supposed to mean? Because can't tell if it's a Z or not. I'm just, and he has an insignia, just like Superman. He has like the little shield. I'm trying to figure out, why does he have that?
Why does he need it? Yeah, because he's kind of like anti-establishment, like he's not proud of his family. He's Zod. He wants to destroy everything and take it over.
I know him and I guess him and Jor-El were really best close friends in the past, but I don't know if he's trying to. I don't understand it. Maybe he had that before he went psycho.
And it does look like they have a lot of character stuff going on. Character development stuff going on between Jor-El and Zod. There's going to be a lot of drama going on between them, so we might see some actual good stuff. Other than that, we have a costume that a lot of people are not too sure about. But are willing to deal with, so it's dark. It's like Batman.
I mean, if they do make more sequels, they'll have to change the costume because there's so many problems with it. They'll have to change it. There's no choice.
Really?
I mean,
Wow.
if that's his prototype, which I'm hoping that's his prototype costume, and I'm hoping they can
That's a good point.
maybe, I know everybody makes mistakes, but maybe they'll learn from this and not try to be like Superman Returns, a dark costume. I just wish they would stop that.
So kind of like the first film, that's what he wore, and in the next movie he'll update it or something.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, if you're gonna have the Batman writers in it, Batman always has a different look to him, so in every movie. So
it's gonna be like, yeah, that's a good point, Kyle. That's an excellent point.
As long as they just try to they need to just make it look like the 52. Try to keep it original for the time period, because that's not modern time to look. I mean, that's just some kind of mix of something else, of someone else's ideas. So
Right. And of course we got Zack Snyder, who's supposed to be an excellent director. He did 300, did Watchmen. What do you think about Zack Snyder?
I think he's pretty good so far. He's got a good repetition, and I mean, I'm not going to compare him to other directors. I guess he's good for the going.
That's good. So what's your overall prediction for Man of Steel? Do you think it's going to bomb? Or
I haven't really seen it. I think it's going to do okay. Probably a little bit better than Superman Returns. Just a tad better. That I just don't have no other aspects for it. I don't really have any. I know some people will agree with me. That's okay. Throw darts at my head or something. But I'm not a Batman person. I like Batman, but just I don't think he...
You're more Superman.
I don't think... he probably... I'm sure I don't think he's really a Superman fan. And you got to have a really good Superman fan to write a good movie. I don't think David S. Goyer is a Superman person. I don't think that's his film.
That's really interesting,
I think he
Kyle.
just did it because they want him to write it. So maybe they asked him to write it. And, his thoughts. And maybe he did look back at some comic books. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But... even if he did, if he was if he was really a diehard fan, he would have done it this way. But since we all know how he thinks now by the Batman movies, I just think it's gonna be kind of violence and this violent movie, and that's all it is.
Right. And so you think that Batman is his own animal, and then you got to let Superman be its own animal as well, be its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
I know exactly what you're saying.
It just looks like it's probably going to be a violent movie. That's how I see it.
Wow.
There's so much violence in the world. We don't need
And of course we saw that poster where he's got handcuffed.
It's an interesting poster, but I don't like it. I don't think that's really nice to show a poster like that. That's not giving me... That's almost like showing me Superman's weak and he's giving up.
That's a good point. I think that's a valid point.
I know he's not going to hurt people. If they're going to point guns at him, he's going to listen. But we don't want to see a poster like that. Let's just show a nice poster of him looking happy or something.
Yeah, you want a poster of him, in the hero position, like I'm here to save the world.
Oh, I've seen him as this one. He doesn't have any face expressions. He's just cold, serious.
Yeah, I have not seen... we haven't gotten that much, obviously, from the trailers, but I have not seen him smile once in anything, in any of the trailers or anything.
He kind of looks unhappy to be Superman, actually.
Yeah, it looks like, like he's burdened with the whole idea of being Superman. I mean, from what I got from it so
would
far.
Would it really make him happy if someone just gave him a piece of...
And even when he was a kid, he's talking to Kevin Costner... Paul can't, and he says that comment, well, should I just have let him die? And he goes, maybe, that's pretty dark.
And you think he might help if you give him a few pieces or Reese's Pieces? It might help a little bit.
Because he's an alien, yeah, so, hey, just put a trail of Reese's Pieces.
That'd make him happy, right? I think that'd put a smile on my face. Since they want to keep it to that E.T. idea, which I'm very unhappy about.
Yeah, it's just that Superman's an extraterrestrial, he's an E.T., and he's obviously not human.
I don't like that idea. I think that's throwing him off. It's going to make him become people are going to be scared of him.
That's interesting. So what are your last thoughts on Man of Steel?
I just thought maybe they should have took more of their time on the process, find a better writer, and I think I don't know. I think my whole time just got wasted for 6 years of my life. This went by, and I'm very unhappy. So I think I wish I had the power to shut it down, but I guess it's already made. So
Just shut down the whole movie, huh?
I wish, it could go straight to DVD or something.
That's funny.
I don't know. I'm really not too impressed. So
you're not too impressed with Man of Steel at all?
I think it's just money, marketing, and just people just want to just make money. I think that's all it is. Propaganda. It's just for people who just want to do that and ruin the franchise.
And we know, of course, that they were kind of backed in a corner in court because the court said, you have to keep making these Superman films because the Siegels and the Schusters have a stake on it, a financial stake, so you have to keep pumping it out and giving them revenue, kind of like you snooze, you lose. So
it's both their faults. They're being pressured, and
so it's just the money then. It's just
all about the money.
Yeah,
it's just both didn't. I don't know. They didn't. This didn't come
so they're
to
just
terms.
rushing it out because they have to.
They have to, and that's what the problem is. I just don't understand.
And maybe Warner Brothers is backed up in a corner, and then they can't really, this is like what the Siegels and Schusters want. Of course, I don't know if they're fans, if his ancestors are fans or whatever. I have no idea. Hopefully they are. But we know that Warner Brothers wanted to make a new Superman movie, but perhaps they just had to make it because legally they had to. Because if they don't make it, then the Schusters and Siegels can say, okay, you know what? The court said you have to keep making his money because you snooze, you lose. So if you don't keep making his money, give Superman to us and we'll start making movies. Which we don't want to do because we know we always want Warner Brothers on Superman because they own DC Comics. If you don't have the DC comic book characters in Superman, that's just, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be the worst thing ever, and then the whole franchise is going to bomb. That could just be the most terrible thing to happen.
I think DC's getting more chances now to develop different characters. It's good they want to focus on this Batman and Superman, but you can only do that for so long. You just got to make a good movie. So I think I'm really looking forward from what's supposed to be a Justice League movie, I guess.
But
I keep on hearing
movies.
about it. I don't know how they're gonna work that one out, but I just hope it's different than when they put Batman and Superman. I just hope it's not related to that series. I don't know. It might be, but
we know Avengers did it really well. Avengers had their.
I'm really surprised because it was okay.
Yeah, and Marvel, that's what I like about Marvel. Avi Arad, that's his name, who runs Marvel Entertainment. They just do it. They just make it. It's like no fear, and that's what DC needs to do. But then again, the movies for Marvel, a lot of people complain those are just dumb popcorn movies. We don't really get a taste of what these characters, who they really are, and they're not usually that good. It's only the DC movies that are good. So
I think Goyer just needs to stick to dark characters.
You think he should stick to dark?
Which I think they're making a revamp to Swamp Thing. So maybe he needs to stick to something like Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing is a pretty dark character. He's like a monster, and he lives in the swamp, and you endanger his forest or his swamps, he's gonna mess up your whole day. So I think that's the kind of stuff he needs to stick with. I think stuff like that with Superman, I don't think that was the best approach.
That's good. Those are all valid points.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there. So at least DC's trying to do something different characters. So
that's right. Well, thank you for listening. Our time's about up. I hope you guys enjoyed our first episode of Man of Steel. And our next episode will be about the Smallville comic books. The new Smallville comics, the direction that DC is going in that, and how it relates to the TV show. And just the thoughts on that overall. So please join us for episode 2. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Chronicles, the Superman, Superboy, DC Universe.